Hello and welcome to 4-4. Today we're going to be talking about decimals and fractions. And we're going to be converting between decimals and fractions and then back to decimals. So here I thought there was a really great diagram that kind of shows how decimals, percents, and fractions, they're all related because they're all parts of a whole. They're all that space between the numbers, and so it kind of just shows how to go between all of them. But today we're going to be focusing on this part right here, the decimals to fractions. So we're going to be looking at place the digits in the decimal over the appropriate power of 10. So that would be 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. Hopefully we won't get quite that high today. And simplify. Here it's divide the numerator by the denominator. So those are kind of the two strategies we're going to be talking about today. You do not have to write this down, but it's just a good visual to kind of show you that everything is connected. So let's start off with some vocabulary. First, we have to know that a mixed number is a number that contains both a whole number that's greater than 0 and a fraction. So here we have a whole number 1. So I know this number is going to be between 1 and 2. 1 and, here's my fraction, 3/4. Or this number 2, it's greater than 2, so it's going to be between 2 and 3. So this number would be 2 and 1/3 is between 2 and 3. It's that space between. Then we have terminating decimals and repeating decimals. So terminating decimals have a finite number of decimal places. That means they end. Finite means it ends, and infinite means it goes on forever. And so here I'd have like 75 hundredths, then that's it. There's nothing left after that. Here I have 3 and 215 thousandths, and then it stops. Whereas a repeating decimal has a block of 1 or more digits that repeat without an end. So this 0.333333333333333, I mean the 3's go on forever. So how we would write that is we do 0 and 3/10, and then we put a bar over it, the numbers that repeat. Okay, and here's an example of more than one digit that repeats. So this one goes 125, 125, 125, 125, 125 forever. So how I would write this is I would do 7 and 125 thousandths, and then I put my bar over that because that's the part that repeats. Now sometimes there are even decimals, I'll kind of go over the side here, that would do 0 and 7, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, and the 3 is the thing that's repeating. So then in that case I'd do 0 and 7, and then I would get my 3, and the bar only goes over the 3 because the 3 is what's repeating. So sometimes we get numbers like that where the first number does not repeat, but then the second number does. So that's just kind of some examples of repeating decimals that you might see. Okay, so to go from a decimal to a fraction, it's pretty simple if you think about it, okay? Or a mixed number, sorry. So I would say this as 0 and 23 hundredths. Okay, so how I'm going to do that is 23 hundredths. I'm just going to write 23 over 100. It's just that easy. Hundredths, so I know it's 100. I'm going to use whatever number is after to the right of my decimal as my numerator. So 23 hundredths. Now my second step is to see if I can simplify. Okay, now this one I know 23 is prime, so I can't simplify, so that's all I have to do for this one. Okay, now this one's going to be a mixed number because I see I have a whole. So I'm just going to start by writing my whole down. And now I have to look at my decimal piece. Now my decimal piece says 7/10. Okay, so just like it sounds, I'm going to write 7 over 10. Now, when we first looked at the first slide, we saw that it said to the power of 10. So this would be the 10th place. This is the 100th place. So my denominator is 100. It could be something like 1 and 753. So then I do 753 over 1,000 because this is the 1,000th place. Okay, so that's our first step. Our second step is simplify. 7 is a prime number, so I'm not going to be able to simplify. So I'm done. Now let me do a quick example of one that I would need to simplify. Like let's do 7 and 6/10. Okay, so I'm just going to write down my whole number. Then I'm going to look at my decimal here. This shows 6/10. Now to simplify a fraction, I'm looking at, can I divide the top and the numerator and the denominator by the same number to simplify it? Okay, so I know that 2 goes into both 6 and 10. So I do 6 divided by 2 would give me 3. 10 divided by 2, so this has to be the same number. I have to divide them both by the same number if I'm simplifying. Okay, 10 divided by 2 is 5. Now, I know 3 and 5 are both prime, so I cannot simplify them any longer. So my answer is going to be 7 and 3/5. That would be an example of a fraction where I would have to simplify. Okay, I saw that 2 goes into both 6 and 10, so I'm going to divide them both by 2 and get my simplified answer. And sometimes you might have to do it again. You might have to divide by 3 or divide by 5, but we're just making sure that we do it to both the numerator and the denominator. Okay, so now to go from a fraction or mixed number to a decimal, we divide the numerator by the denominator. So let's write that out. Numerator divided by the denominator. Okay, sorry, my bad writing. Numerator divided by the denominator. So I'm going to do that just here. 3 divided by 4. Now I know 3/4 is not a whole, so I should expect to get a decimal answer. And so I'm going to put my decimal point in there and add a 0 and bring it straight up. Sorry, that's a decimal point. Just got a little carried away. Can 4 go into 3? Nope. Can 4 go into 30? Yep. Now I think about how many times can 4 go into 30. 4 times 8 is 32. So that's too big, so it's going to be 7. 7 times 4 is 28. So I'm going to take away 28 and I'd get a 2. So I'm not done yet because I didn't get a 0. So I have to add another 0, bring it down. How many times can 4 go into 20? Can go in there 5 times. So 3/4 written as a decimal is 75 hundredths. Just do numerator divided by the denominator. Okay, so let's look here. If I'm looking and I'm trying to figure out this as a decimal, you guys, the whole number is going to stay a whole number. It's going to keep staying 5. Okay, so for my answer, I'm going to put my answer down here. 5 is going to be my whole number. I just need to look at this 2/3 here and change that into a decimal. So let's do numerator divided by the denominator. Put in my decimals, add my 0. Can 3 go into 2? Nope. Can 3 go into 20? Yes. 3 times 7 is 21, so it's going to be a 6 minus 18. So I have 2 left over. Let's bring down another 0. 3 goes into 20, another 6. Okay. Minus 18, bring down another 0. Are you seeing a pattern here? Oh, sorry, 2. Bring down my 0 one little more spot. 3 goes into 20 6 times. So we know this is going to be a repeating decimal. So how I'm going to show that is I'm going to put my decimal in and 6 repeating. 5 and 2/3 looks like 5 and 6/10 repeating. Okay. So to go from fraction or mixed number to a decimal, we just divide the numerator by the denominator. To go from a decimal to a fraction, we just take that decimal and we put it over, is it the tenths place? Is it the hundredths place? Is it the thousandths place? And simplify. I mean, it's not too tricky, but once we add the next step of percents in there, now things start to get tricky, like which one do I do? So really make sure to practice fraction to decimal, and then when we add in percent, then it'll just be adding another step in. Now we have one more quick topic to study here, so let's get to that. All right, so now we're going to be practicing. All right, so now we need to compare and order fractions and decimals. Now the reason why we're doing this last is because we need to be able to convert into decimal fractions, whatever we want, whatever our choice is. My personal choice is I like to always convert to decimals. They're easier to compare because you don't need to find a common denominator. So if I look at these numbers, 5/10, 1/5, and 37/100, I'm going to change this 1/5 into a decimal so that it's easier for me to look at and compare with the other numbers out there. So I'm going to take the numerator divided by the denominator. I think it's a little more catchy when you say top divided by the bottom. Top divided by the bottom. And you can kind of look at, another way I like to look at it is if you look at 1/5 and it kind of like fell over. That's how it would, that's how it would look in your division problem. 1 divided by 5. Okay, so put my decimal in, get my 0 in there. Wow, look at this. 5 goes into 10 twice. 5 does not go into 1, so I put my 0 at the top. And then I'll subtract 10 there because 5 times 2 is 10. I get 0 left over. So now I'm really looking at 5/10, 2/10, and 37/100. Now when we talked about this before, we said line them up. Let's do 5/10, 2/10, and 37/100. So I know this is going to be my smallest because it's 2. So that's going to go first. But I need to make sure I don't write my answer as a decimal because the question asks me to order fraction. So now I need to go back to my fraction. I know that 2/10 is also worth 1/5. Okay, so if I'm ordering from least to greatest, that's what I'm going to start with, 1/5. Next would be my 37/100. And that's how the question asks, so I can keep that. Then it would be 5/10. Okay, and I know that because I'm looking at the tenths place. The 2 is the smallest, then the 3, and then the 5 gets me the biggest number. So that's how we would do that one. This is the biggest trick right here, remembering to go back to what the question asks us. The question does not ask us to order 2/10. The question asks us to order 1/5. Well, that's all that I have for you tonight. Please make sure you go back through your notes and make sure that you took really good notes so that tomorrow when you come in, you can get started right away. Thank you for watching.